here with Moravian Protestant bishop, teacher, scientist, educator, and writer, John Amos Comenius. He is known as the father of modern education. He contributed to the Enlightenment, created a philosophy called pacifism, and even wrote the first textbook with illustrations. This is going to be a life-changing interview with one of the most pivotal thinkers for education.
I was born 1592 in Nivens, Moravia, in the area that is now the Czech Republic. I died in 1670, but as a youngster, I studied at universities that allowed Protestants. In those universities, I met important figures who were influencing European scientific, theological, and philosophical thought. It was a time in history of great reforms. After my studies, I returned home to teach and run a Protestant parish. However, not long after I returned home to Catholic armies, came and defeated our Protestant dreams of religious freedom, and marked the beginning of a forceful re-Catholicization of the Czech lands. During this time of the 30 Years' War, I led my Protestant brothers to exile to escape severe persecution. I lived and worked in a plentiful amount of countries. When I declared support of the Protestant Swedish side during the Northern Wars in 1665, the Roman Catholic Church in Poland burned down my house, manuscripts, and the school's printing press.
Tell me about your professional, significant accomplishments.
As you already mentioned, I'm regarded as the father of modern education, really a pioneer of modern educational methods. I contributed greatly to the Enlightenment and created a new philosophy called pacifism. Firstly, I was a Protestant bishop of the Moravian Church during its darkest days, and I became its president during that sad 30 Years' War. I was called upon to completely restructure the school system of Sweden. I outlined the Swedish school into what exists in the modern system of education: kindergarten, elementary school, secondary school, college, and university. Also, people argue about if this is true or not, but I was asked to be the president of Harvard University. I declined due to the state of the Protestant Moravian Church and my responsibility, but I also wrote lots of books.
I hate to interrupt, but I actually have some of your greatest works right here. Let's see first. The Great Didactic.
Yes, The Great Didactic is an important work. I argue that teachers should produce knowledgeable and virtuous students who would continue to learn throughout their lives. I also argue that teaching as a technical skill. In The Great Didactic, I also advocated for universal education, meaning equal opportunities for women and poor children to receive a practical and universal education.
That sounds like our American public school system. It's free for all children, no matter how rich or poor, male or female. Okay, so I also have The Gate of Languages Unlocked. Tell me about this one.
In this book, I recommend that teachers employ the student's native language as a necessary frame of reference for unfamiliar words to become meaningful. In this book, I also advocated for teachers to begin with simple lessons for students to master before proceeding to more complex exercises.
Okay, so basically, children should learn on a gradual level based on what they can comprehend and remember. Next, I have The World in Pictures.
The first textbook incorporating illustrations. This book reflected my belief that all learning begins with the senses. From this book, I set forth a more Christian program for learning from nature. In it, pictures and illustrations each correspond to a word. It presented a simple vocabulary and specific examples to help students understand the concept or rule.
Today, I esteem you, John Comenius, for writing such a pivotal text of pedagogical innovation. It opened the way for modern-day teaching instruments, such as audiovisual aids and electronic media. Going back to what you said about your contributing to the Enlightenment, could you explain to me what the Enlightenment was?
Yes, the time of the Enlightenment was also known as the Age of Reason. This lasted from 1685 to 1815. If you put those dates together with my death date, you will see that I merely contributed to it. I did not live through that long 18th century, as they called it. I was a contemporary of some of the great thinkers Galileo, Descartes, Rembrandt, and Milton. It was a time where we all sought to reason understanding. My friend John Locke was another thinker who laid much of the groundwork for the Enlightenment. Locke argued that humans were a blank page. Humans gained knowledge and identity and understanding through accumulated experience. We had meaningful conversations about this. I'm a big believer in learning through experience and senses. The overall theme of this Enlightenment focused on rational questioning and belief as a process, accomplished through dialogue. But keep in mind, when you think about the Enlightenment, it was happening everywhere. There was a French Enlightenment, a Scottish Enlightenment, an English, German, Swiss, and even American Enlightenment. Conversations about reason and truth were occurring globally.
Good to know. That sounds like a pretty complex time throughout all over the world. And your philosophy of pacifism. What are some of the basic tenets of this?
Yes, well, it is a philosophy I created to further Francis Bacon's attempt at organizing all of human knowledge. Pacifism is really a system of education that allows all humans to be educated about the world, and that enables them to judge the events of the world for themselves. Basically, pacifism advocated the unification of all knowledge, combined with social reform, to make it acceptable to all people around the world. I sought to incorporate theology, philosophy, education, all into one. That's actually what pacifism means, all knowledge. My hope in developing this universal knowledge was that humans could one day live in harmony, in a peaceful world. Unfortunately, my detailed manuscript of pacifism was destroyed in that dreadful burning of my home in Linzo.
John, this video will be viewed by aspiring educators in California. Do you have any final bits of advice for them? What is your notable contribution or bits of application to educational practices?
Well, first and foremost, remember teachers, you have the wonderful role of creating lifelong learners. And secondly, the purpose of learning is practical. The reality is, I offered practical ideas to the field of education. I believed that all nature is universal. Therefore, all people share common stages of intellectual development. Therefore, teachers need to identify their students' stages of development and therefore match the level of instruction accordingly. Like I said, teaching is a technical skill, and all the parts relate to each other. So teachers need to know where their students are developmentally to provide appropriate and effective instruction. Learning should be a natural and gradual growth from simple to more complex concepts. As educators, we should support the child's native language. The children's primary language is the best language to start with when learning a foreign language. We can use their native language to make connections to the foreign language. And also, children need to have comprehensive knowledge of their environment, both physical and social. They need to receive education in religious, moral, and classical subjects. This is a main emphasis of my philosophy, pacifism. Another point I'd like to make is that people best learn through their senses. My advice when you are teaching material, get the students some hands-on experimental work. The students learn much better when they can obtain ideas through objects and visuals rather than just words. Overall, I want children to learn with hands-on activities, with illustrations and applications for learning. I decided to create a learning community where learning was holistic, experiential, natural and enjoyable, and ultimately available to everyone.